Now, the state has withdrawn charges against the former head of the Hawks, Anwar, Dramat, and Gauteng Hawks head, Shadrack Sibiya. State advocate George Baloyi says the charges were provisionally withdrawn based on the representations they have made to the state. The charges against the third accused, Captain Lesley Maluleka, were however not withdrawn, and the case will continue against him. He's now facing 16 charges of kidnapping, contravention of the Immigration Act, and defeating the ends of justice. The charges relate to the repatriation of a Zimbabwean national in 2010. The case has been postponed to next month to allow Maluleka to also make representations why he should not be prosecuted. Let's go to Patricia Fasahi for more on the story. Patricia, a very good morning to you. What an outcome.
Yes, certainly. But what an outcome that was expected, one would say, if you take into consideration that the NPA had already indicated their intention to, of course, provisionally withdraw the charges against the two accused, and that is the former Hawks boss, Anwar Dramat, and, of course, the former Gauteng Hawks head, and that is General Shadrack Sibiya. So we came here with the intention that that would be the outcome, and now we have to remember that was not a decision that was taken by the judge, and he made it very clear here that it is the NPA who provisionally dropped the charges. So let's speak to IPID head. You would know that IPID was also investigating this matter, and they also cleared the accused of the charges that they were facing. I'm now joined by IPID spokesperson Moses Dlamini. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, I think IPID came here with the expectation, just like the media, that this would be the outcome.
Indeed. Remember that in 2015 we made the recommendations that only Colonel Maluleka should be charged. There was no evidence against General Sibiya and General Dramat. However, the minister had an interest in this case, and General Mklameza also had an interest in this case, and therefore there was interference and an insistence to proceed with the investigation. But also the NPA had a role to play in this. There was no evidence against these two generals. However, the NPA proceeded to charge them purely because of political reasons.
And interesting, so one would perhaps also link this to the broader issue, the ongoing phenomenon of perhaps state capture in the country, that even the crime intelligence sector, the police sector, was also infiltrated through state capture.
Well, the point is this. This case was totally fabricated by crime intelligence under the leadership of General Mdluli. And General Mklameza basically carried the can for General Mdluli and make sure that this case continues the way it has. As early as 2015, as IPID, we found that there was no evidence against these people. However, they were persecuted basically by the law.
It's a very long-standing matter. I mean, dating back to 2010, although the formal charges were brought in 2016. How would you say has this impacted the image of the police? I mean, it's a very controversial matter, very wide reported. We've heard so many murky and questionable detail coming out from this whole Zimbabwe illegal rendition case. In your opinion, as IPID, you've done the investigations. You had to ultimately scrutinize your own members. How has it impacted the image, the credibility, the integrity of the police?
Well, these are the things that damage the criminal justice system. Of course, IPID was negatively affected in the sense that people in IPID were actually hounded out of IPID to continue the prosecution, which should never have happened. We had like 8 senior managers suspended or transferred from IPID because they would not continue or rather pursue the political agenda that was being managed from the, unfortunately, the Ministry of Police. Minister Ntlego was part of the agenda to get rid of Dramat and Sibiya.
And it goes back to the question of the rogue elements within the police, within the crime intelligence sphere, and just the rogue elements within the whole criminal justice system. Because this matter is not just a matter that affected the police. Even the NPA came under scrutiny linked to this particular matter.
These are the things that need to be looked at. The independence of the NPA, the integrity of the police, the interference with investigations, because it's clear from our experience that police don't like to be investigated. We have other cases in which the IPIT investigations have been hampered by police officers who are under investigations. It shows that it's also possible for people to fabricate and manufacture cases to pursue other agendas.
All right, thank you so much there, IPIT spokesperson Moses Dlamini. So let's get a reaction from the former, or rather suspended Gauteng head, and that is General Shadrack Sibiya, fired. We have to be politically correct, of course, fired, suspended. Actually, it's such a complicated matter that I think has confused a whole lot of us in terms of what is really happening here. Now that the charges have formally been provisionally withdrawn against you, what does that mean for you? You've been fighting a very, very difficult fight.
All I can say is that I'm disappointed. I can't say I'm happy. I'm not happy because from the onset we were charged based on manufactured evidence. This is a bogus case, and I hoped that the case was going to be permanently withdrawn against us, but if it's provisional, which means it's still hanging.
From your legal side, your legal representatives, they must have sat with you, gave you more detail. And as I said, most of us came here with the understanding that that's exactly what's going to happen. The charges would be provisionally withdrawn. What advice did they give you? What is really happening? What is still hanging in the balance?
What is still hanging in the balance is the fact that now our matter has been withdrawn pending accused number one, which is Captain Maluleka's case. But remember, we were not charged based on what Captain Maluleka was said. We were charged based on our own independent evidence against us. Now, if we were charged based on the evidence the state has against us, why now withdraw it? Okay, we did make representations, but the evidence that was used to charge us is still there. Why provisionally withdraw? If there's no case against us, then say so and withdraw the matter permanently. Now the judge said we are not acquitted, which means the state can decide at any time to reinstate the matter. So which means we still have a cloud hanging over our head.
What does that say about the NPA? Is there something that maybe we're not understanding, that is not communicated openly and transparently? What is really happening behind the scenes? We have to ask, the NPA has been linked to a whole lot of questionable activity over the years.
Well, I can tell you is that the prosecutor is sitting with false statements that were made against us. The prosecutor is aware that there is no case against us. And the prosecutor is also aware of those who made false statements against us. But as to the reason why it chooses to just be playing these tricks, I'm not sure.
Are you going to find out? Is there any way to get at the bottom here, to get, behind this whole game that is playing? Why are you not formally acquitted? Especially if you take into consideration that the whole case is formulated on false statements against you.
Well, personally, I had to take advice from my legal team, but I personally didn't want to make any representation because I wanted this matter to be heard, because I know for a fact that there is no evidence against me, and the fact that there is no statement that is really implicating me other than the false statement that were made against me, and there is clear evidence as to the fact that these are manufactured evidence. This is manufactured evidence.
Just remind the public again, where does this all start? Why were you falsely accused? Who was against you? Who was trying to fabricate what against you or implicate you wrongly in what? How does this all start? Because, as I said earlier, a very complicated case with so many weird detail, almost something that you would expect coming out from a movie, really.
Remember, I was allocated a matter to investigate that involved the former head of intelligence, Richard Mdluli. And it is during that period when one of the officers from crime intelligence, and I do have that affidavit where a member of crime intelligence says, I gave them an instruction to go and arrest Richard Mdluli and also harassed Colonel Klimba. In the same affidavit, the same member of crime intelligence say also that, and you guys, you also arrest foreigners and then you take them through the border without following the procedures. The same official, in the same statement. Now you can see where this thing of rendition started. But all I can say is that I know nothing about rendition. I've never been involved in any arrest. Never given anyone any instruction, even though they tried to say they saw me at the scene. I can tell you now that even the chairperson during my disciplinary proceedings, he made a ruling that says witnesses lied, and General Sibiya was not part of the operation. He was not at all the scenes where the witness said they saw me at the scene. It is the chairperson who had my disciplinary proceedings who says he was not there and witnesses lied. And even my telephone records can indicate and they can prove that from work I went straight to Pretoria to where I live. So I was not involved at all. Even General Dramat was not involved. We had nothing to do with this rendition matter. In fact, the official correspondence between Zimbabwe was addressed to crime intelligence. And even the officials mentioned in the official correspondence between Zimbabwe and crime intelligence are crime intelligence officers. It is crime intelligence who congratulated their members. We do have the congratulatory letters for the job well done after the arrest. We can account for each and every suspect that was arrested by crime intelligence officials.
Why you then? Do you think perhaps it might be linked to some of the reports and rumors that we've heard in the public domain that you, including certain police officers, were actually plotting against your Richard Mdluli's and General Ntlemeza's? And does it perhaps linked to the standoff between the two groups?
I wouldn't say it's a standoff. Remember, I didn't allocate the Richard Mdluli matter to myself to investigate. When that matter was allocated to me to investigate, we did investigate working with the prosecution team, and the prosecutors came out and said there is a case to answer. Now, unfortunately, some of us had to really take the rap for that investigation.
All right. Where are you standing now in terms of what are you doing, your personal affairs? How has this affected you on a personal level, just before we wrap?
Well, I owe lawyers and senior counsels. I'm fighting my labor matter, and I'm paying thousands and thousands, and the prosecutor still, knowing that there's no case, is still postponing this thing and saying I'm withdrawing provisionally, which means I'm still having to pay lawyers because I still have to keep them.
And you're unemployed?
No, I am employed, and happily so.
So you don't want your job back?
I can't say that.
No. Do you want your job back?
I'm not going to comment about that. I'm happily employed by the city of Joburg.
All right, we'll leave it at that right now. You heard it, of course, from the fired former Gauteng Hawks head, and that is General Shadrack Sibiya here, who again emphasized that he has done nothing wrong. Of course, just explaining his unhappiness that he was expecting the matter to be formally withdrawn completely. Basically, he was expecting an acquittal. It did not happen. It is a provisional withdrawal, meaning that the NPA can at any given point change its mind and perhaps pursue the matter forward. Now, perhaps more important is that the other accused, and that is Maluleka. His matter is, of course, postponed to the 12th of November, and that's when we're going to hear his presentations in terms of what he is expecting, and that will perhaps have an impact on the other two accused, and we will know then, will this matter finally rest or not. For now, let's give it back to you in studio.
Thank you so much there to Patricia Fisachi. Shadrack Sibiya also stating there that he's happily employed by the city of Joburg, another appointment that has sent tongues wagging there.